This is FLOSS Weekly. I'm Doc Searls, and this week Jonathan Bennett and I talk with Frank Karlitschek of Nextcloud. Frank started out with OwnCloud, and that evolved into Nextcloud, and it has been growing steadily with a large worldwide group of developers. It's open source, and it's a business, and it's involved in all kinds of unexpected verticals. Some of them are really interesting, like ships at sea. Just a lot of interesting stuff in this conversation, and it is coming up next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is FLOSS Weekly, episode 755, recorded Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. Nextcloud. This episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by Bitwarden. Get the open source password manager that can help you stay safe online. Get started with a free Teams or Enterprise Plan trial, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. And by FastMail. Reclaim your privacy, boost productivity, and make email yours with FastMail. Try it now, free for 30 days at fastmail.com/twit. Hello again, everyone, everywhere. I am Doc Searls. This is FLOSS Weekly, and this week I am joined by Jonathan Bennett himself from a corner of Oklahoma somewhere.
Yes, this is Jay Bennett actual on the line.
he's actually here.
It's good to be with you, sir.
So how you doing?
I'm good. It's finally fall time, which means it's not 100 degrees here anymore, and we've got a little bit of color in the trees, and I'm just loving it.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're further south than I am, I think, but I'm in southern Indiana, and which is the same latitude as Washington D.C., which is it's in the south a little bit, and it's 75 outside today, really nice. But of course, it's been cooler. No frost yet, though. You guys get frost at some point, don't you?
Oh, eventually we will, just not yet. It'll be another couple of weeks at least, if not another month or two. Yeah. It varies wildly from year to year.
Yeah, what I like about southern places is that the fall colors are kind of on the installment plan. They don't happen all at once. the red maples go off, and then maybe a couple of weeks in the dogwoods, and a week and a half, the silver maples. We're in the Northeast where I used to live. It's like, it's a great big show, and it's over in about 3 days. And it usually ends with a heavy wind and a rain, and then all the leaves are on the ground and nobody's happy.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
So have you done any homework on this one with our guest?
So I have run a Nextcloud instance for years and years. I think that kind of counts.
Then you'll have the good questions. Well, let's rush into it then. Our guest is Frank Karlitschek, who I heard talk on OwnCloud, an earlier creation of his, and now he's got Nextcloud. And so Frank, give us a story of where. Well, first of all, if you feel like it, where you came from, but then also where OwnCloud and then Nextcloud came from, so we sort of get the path here.
Sure. First of all, let me say that I'm really, really happy to be at part of the show again. I think I was here before once or twice, and it's really great to be back. My favorite open source podcast. Yeah, you asked me about the story, which is a bit. I mean, I'm not that young, so the story is long.
Yes, you're young. Trust me, you're young.
Well, depends. Well, I'm old enough to be to do open source for close to 25 years now. So I'm at the beginning part of different open source communities and projects. For example, KDE. I was part of the KDE project for many, many years. Did all kinds of things there. Was a board member for some time, and then started a number of other open source projects and initiatives. And one was indeed OwnCloud, which was the project before Nextcloud. I want to keep this short, to be honest, because they already talked about that story already so many times. If you Google my name, you can find lots of interviews and presentations about that. But the quick summary is that, I started OwnCloud alone. It was first a hobby. It was a side project of my company at the time. But it became clear then after 1.5 years that there's really an opportunity to found a company around it to make it really bigger and more professional. Unfortunately, I did a lot of mistakes there. Started to work together with the wrong people, and it was not really that successful, to be honest. And it went down. And 2016, like the core team, 12 people, including me, the core team decided to reboot it, basically. That's one of the cool things you can do with open source and free software, right? You can just fork it. And usually a fork is done by other people. In this case, it was forked by me. So one presentation I gave a few times already has the title, Why I Forked My Own Project and My Own Company. It's a bit unusual, but then that's what we did 2016. And since then it's Nextcloud as a successor. And it's really, really happy to say that it's a lot more successful now and growing quite nicely.
I'm curious, while we're here talking about this, looking back at it, because you got a chance to do this, what specifically went wrong with OwnCloud? Like what could you tell other developers? Somebody else that has an open source project and is thinking about trying to commercialize it. What's the top 3 things based on your experience you would say, don't do this?
So I think this is a very general advice, but if you work together with people, always make sure that are the right people. And some people say that picking a co-founder of a company is a decision that is like even bigger than who to marry. And might actually be partly true. So because getting a divorce from your co-founder is maybe even harder than in other areas. So my advice would be to really make sure that you really have the right people in your organization. And if you decide to take external investment, which we no longer have at Nextcloud, but if you want to do it, then really make sure that you're completely aligned with your investors about what you want to achieve and why and what the strategy is. Because especially with open source or free software, open source free software licenses mean that everybody can use your software without paying you, which is a concept that is for us here or the listeners to this podcast, probably something that's quite natural. But for a lot of classic investors, it's weird. It's why would you give away your intellectual property for free? That's a perspective that is just doesn't resonate with a lot of investors that well. And it's a very typical that at the beginning, if everything goes well, then it's whatever. And I don't know, if the growth is slowing down, for example, then it's a very typical situation where your investors then come and say, okay, why not we shut down this community edition thing? It's just wasting money anyway. And because they don't get it, right? They don't understand open source and free software. So this would be my advice, to always make sure that you work together with people who really understand open source and free software.
So for Nextcloud, what is the business model that makes sense then? Is it primarily, providing hosting, or are you doing support contracts, taking money to add features? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So hosting we don't, because one of the key goals and the mission of Nextcloud is to decentralize the internet. So we want to move away from a future where only 5 big tech companies has all the data in the world. in all communication in the world. So we want to decentralize the internet. And for that, it's important that we enable like all the people out there to host Nextcloud themselves. So we don't really provide any central hosting. This would go against the mission. So you want to enable everybody else to host it. So we don't do hosting. We also don't do feature development because feature development, I think, is a paid feature development, I have to say. Of course, we do feature development, but not paid feature development. I think it's a very bad business model because sure, your customers pay you for the next feature, but then at some point, the question is, okay, who maintains all those features? Right. So you want to have like ongoing revenue stream to make sure that you can maintain and update and keep all the features live. And for that, I think the only business model that really works is our enterprise subscriptions or support subscriptions. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing that Red Hat is doing, or Canonical, or SUSE, or MariaDB, or all the others. So that's what we do. The software is open source. You can go to our website, download it, or go to GitHub and download it. And millions of people do that. But if you're a big organization, if you're a government, big enterprise, a big university, big school, I don't know, then it's recommended that you get a support contract from us, because then we can help you to keep it running safe and secure.
Now, and I know a lot of people that are listening are going to have, some passing familiarity with Nextcloud, and the idea that it's a service that you can host yourself, and it's got a bunch of things built into it. It's kind of a replacement for like the Google suite, like Google Docs and some of those things. But what are all of the, and this is going to be quite a list, I'm sure, but what are all the pieces there? What all can you do with Nextcloud? What are things you can do with Nextcloud that people might not know about?
So, good question. I mean, the core of it, like the stuff you get if you just take the zip file or the official Docker image or something from our website, then you get a feature set, which is, as you said, very comparable to the one you get from Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, which is basically file sharing, files you can share. So you can upload and download your files, share it with other people, access it from your mobile phone, from your tablet, desktop client to sync it offline from your laptop, versioning, tagging, searching, all the usual things. And additionally, you have Nextcloud Talk, which is for chat and video conferencing, very similar to Teams, for example. And then you have a groupware component for mail, calendar, and contacts, and then an Office component, which is for editing Office documents collaboratively in the browser together with other people for text documents, spreadsheets, presentations, and so on. So this is, I would say, is the base functionality, and very similar to Google, Microsoft, and others. But we see ourselves as a platform. So if you go, for example, to apps.nextcloud.com, then you see a really, really long list of additional applications that our community has built on top of Nextcloud. And you can install them as you want. And there is really everything. I mean, there's from a password manager to a cooking recipe manager, financial management applications, or I don't know, like to run your soccer club, an application, and I don't know, all kinds of things. I think you can scan documents. I think there's an application to send faxes. So if you really want to send a fax, you can do that.
That's great.
So that's really a lot. I mean, this also shows the power of community. There are so many features that you can enable if you want them.
So you mentioned decentralization of the internet, and I find that very fascinating. And I'd love to spend a little bit more time kind of poking around in that idea. Does Nextcloud do DNS? Is there any sort of decentralized DNS? Does Nextcloud do Tor services? What all is bundled up with that idea of decentralizing? Because there's a lot of technology and a lot of problems that kind of have spider webs into that concept.
Yeah, definitely. So we decided at Nextcloud to focus on some area of the whole stack that we're good at, and we're good with the whole user interface part. So the real application part. So we don't really have decentralized storage or decentralized DNS or other things, but we can use components. For example, there are some projects who do like federated decentralized storage, and we can use them, mount them into it. We can use existing mail servers. For example, if you're a local mail server, and by the way, mail servers are classically decentralized because there's no central mail server in the world, right? But every mail server can speak with the rest of the world, and we can sit on top of that. We can sit on top of federated distributed databases, and we also have some federation features ourselves, of course. For example, you can have a shared folder between people who are on different machines, which are on different servers. So, for example, if you run a Nextcloud and I have a Nextcloud here, we can have a shared folder, and everything I put in there shows up on your side and the other way around, without a central instance. So that's an example.
Does it use something like ActivityPub as the back end? Can you integrate this with the rest of the Fediverse? This feature, we don't use the ActivityPub. This is actually older than the ActivityPub standard. But we actually have ActivityPub also integrated for our social feature. So we have also a component called Nextcloud Social, which is an ActivityPub implementation. And this can interact with the rest of the Fediverse, Mastodon. So you can have your status messages for Nextcloud showing up on Mastodon, the other way around. The ActivityPub is, of course, a great protocol. I also was part of the social working group of the W3C when it was created. So I was obviously not one of the main authors of it, but I was in the room. So I'm a big fan of the protocol, so we use it too. Yeah, that is extremely. It seems like you have your fingers in a whole lot of things over the years, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, this happens when you're old, so a lot of stories.
Doc claims that you're not old yet.
No, I'll show you old. I mean, I've heard, and this is true, that old is anything older than you, no matter what age you are, and young is younger than you, no matter what age you are. And so there are geezers who I think are older than me, but anyway. I have a question about actually some of your verticals, if you make that distinction. But first, I want to tell everybody that this episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by Bitwarden, the only open source cross-platform password manager anywhere, anytime. Security Now's Steve Gibson has even switched over. With Bitwarden, all of the data in your vault is end-to-end encrypted, not just your passwords. In the summer of 2023 G2 Enterprise Grid report, they solidified their position as the highest performing password manager for the enterprise, leaving competitors in the dust. Bitwarden protects your data and privacy by adding strong, randomly generated passwords for each account. Go further with the username generator. Create unique usernames for each account, or use any of the 6 integrated email alias services. You can log into Bitwarden and decrypt your vault after using SSO on a registered trusted device. No master password needed. This new solution makes it even easier for enterprise users to stay safe and secure with Bitwarden. Transparently view all of Bitwarden's code available on GitHub. On top of being public to the world, Bitwarden also has professional third-party audits performed yearly, and the results get published on their website. Bitwarden is open source security you can trust. Share private data securely with coworkers, across departments, or the entire company with customizable and adaptive plans. Bitwarden's Teams organization option is $3 per month per user, while their enterprise organization plan is just $5 per month per user. Individuals always get Bitwarden's basic free account for unlimited passwords, upgrade anytime to a premium account for less than $1 a month, or bring the whole family with their family organization option to give up to 6 users premium features for only $3.33 a month. This Cybersecurity Awareness Month, keep yourself and help your friends and family stay secure online with Bitwarden. Bitwarden offers a fully featured free plan for everyone, which now includes being able to use hardware security keys or passkeys as a form of two-factor authentication. Bitwarden envisions a world where nobody is hacked and is the only major password manager offering this strong security option for free. At TWiT, we're fans of password managers. Get started with Bitwarden's free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. That's bitwarden.com/twit. So, Frank, it seems to me like every business selling at enterprise ends up accumulating certain kinds of enterprises as verticals, as you might say. I don't know. How's that look for you at this stage in your evolution?
Yeah. That's quite interesting, because when I started this whole thing like over 10 years ago, I thought that a lot of like companies and classic enterprises will become our customers quite fast. And we have some customers like as classic big companies, international companies, work together with Infineon, for example, or with Siemens and the International Red Cross and other organizations like that. But to my surprise, the strongest verticals are actually somewhere else. So the first one is really in the public sector, so governments. So we have really a lot of governments as our customers, from the German government to the French government, the Italian government, Swedish government, European Commission. We also have a number of cities in the US, for example, and also other government organizations all over the world. They really want to keep the data local, keep the data secure. That's a big driver here. The second vertical is everything around education. So we probably have like hundreds of universities and then colleges all over the world as customers, really, really a lot. So someone told me lately that we are the industry standard there, which I find a bit ridiculous, because I don't know. I still see like Nextcloud as a small startup, and it was quite funny if someone.
So I'm just curious what the category there is. You're the industry standard in
like collaboration software for universities.
Okay. Oh wow.
Which it's I think don't think it's completely true. Most of them still use Google and Microsoft, but we are really successful there. And then we have the third vertical, which is a bit different. We work together with a lot of cloud providers, IT providers, who take Nextcloud and white label it and give it their own name and then sell it to their customers. So we have an example of like Mexico, for example. There's a company called America Mobile. They're one of the biggest telcos in the world. They supply like most of South America. And they took Nextcloud and white labeled it and gave it their own name called Claro Drive, and they provided 20 million users there. And we have something similar in Germany and other places too. Yeah.
I'm curious. I've not heard any confirmation of this, but several years ago, a friend of mine in the mobile phone business, or the mobile data business, which is what that is now, said the real purpose of 5G, the whole push for 5G, was local storage, was local cloud, as it were. Mm-hmm. How is that a fact? I mean, you mentioned this Mexican company. Are they doing that? Are they like sharding up local instances of cloud that have low latency, which is part of the big sell with that?
So I'm not sure if 5G is a factor on the backend side. I mean, this company, they run like Nextcloud distributed, I think, over 4 hosting centers. I think one in Brazil, one in Argentina, and then Mexico, and then I forgot where the fourth one is. Mm-hmm. And they have classic like fiber infrastructure, right? But their customers, their customers, I think they benefit a lot from 5G because if you have fast wireless network and a good phone and good software like Nextcloud, you can do everything from your phone nowadays, right? And you can really run your small business from your smartphone nowadays if you have the right connectivity and the right software. And as far as I know, this really happens a lot in Central and South America using Nextcloud.
Well, that brings up to me what I'm sort of imagining running a company from my phone, as it were. Well, what apps am I doing that with? I'm just wondering if there's some that where you sell, there are companion businesses that show up that use Nextcloud as a back end or something. You don't know Nextcloud is there. You're buying, run your company on this, and actually Nextcloud is back there. I'm just blue skying on this, but I'm just wondering how that goes.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know myself because I think it also depends a bit on the business. But I mean, in Nextcloud, first of all, you have like an address book where you can keep all your business contacts, and this can be shared with other people, with other team members of your company, I guess. And you can have a nice list of all your customers or prospects in Nextcloud. Then, of course, with the file stream and share part, you can have all your documents. If you have like offers going out or invoices or something like that, can be there, and again synced between your laptop, your phone, your tablet, and your team members. Then we have the built-in Office component, so you can actually then also like write your invoices or offers or whatever you do, and you can also digitally sign them inside Nextcloud. You can send them out using the Nextcloud mail client. Then we have Nextcloud Talk. You can have video calls and chatting with your customers. Yeah, there are a lot of options, but to be honest, I never really did it like that, right? I'm more old school. I have a real laptop here, but I guess you can also do it from the phone nowadays.
So I have been just lost the last couple of minutes scrolling through the list of applications on apps.nextcloud.com. There are a bunch here, and about every once a screen as I'm scrolling down through them, I'm like, ooh, this looks really interesting, and click into it and look around. But I have questions about this. So one of the problems that we see, Google has had to fix this on their app store. iOS has had to fix this on their app store. Is the problem of either low quality applications or malicious code will sneak into applications. And then one thing that's still a problem on both of those app stores is you have applications that just kind of get abandoned and they bit rot. What solutions are in place for any of that on the apps.nextcloud.com store? Are all of these apps trustworthy? Let's start there.
No.
Okay.
They're not. No.
I'm seeing password managers. I'm seeing like there was one where you upload an application and it will give you a checksum on it. I'm like, how do I know that's not sending all of those files off to somewhere else? Has this been audited? Do I need to audit it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't really want to do like one of those walled garden app stores like Apple and Google because, well, I don't need to explain that. I mean, I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast knows the problem of this like central instances who control what is allowed and what is not allowed. So obviously with Nextcloud and on GitHub, we have a ton of repositories and people can do whatever they want and develop their pet application for Nextcloud. And this has like, as you said correctly, has like different quality levels. Right? I mean, some things are really good. Lots of things are really good, but some things are not. And what we did here on apps.nextcloud.com is that we have introduced these different levels of trustworthiness, basically. So there are some applications that are developed by the core team. They have the highest trust level. Because they're really reviewed by a lot of people, dedicated security reviews, accessibility reviews, peer reviews of every commit and so on. And this has the highest quality level, and this can be fully trusted. And this is also what we recommend to our customers. Then there is a lower tier. This are apps that are developed by trusted people, so people that some people know personally, and they're digitally signed. So they're signed, and basically it's guaranteed that they come from this person, but then really develop independently. So they're most likely fine because they come from like good people. But at the end of the day, if you really want to make sure that they're fine, you should like check the source code. And by the way, this is a key benefit, right? Because everything here is open source and open, right? So everything there can and will be peer reviewed by other people. And if there's something bad in there, people can notice it and will flag it and will show up. But there are also like other apps which are just random apps from the internet. Those I would not install on a production machine.
Sure.
Because this is just code someone published on the internet. Same as if you find a random GitHub repository and they thought, okay, that's great, let's run this code, which is often a bad idea.
Right.
And that's one of the challenges we have, right? Because we are like a super open source community. Everybody can do what they want. Mm-hmm. We don't have a walled garden. So I think the best we came up with is have these different trust levels. But yeah.
So I'm on the website on apps.nextcloud.com. I don't actually see the trust levels referenced here anywhere.
When you're
accessing it from within Nextcloud.
Yeah, if you try to install it, then it shows you if it's trusted or not, and so on.
I would love to see just on the web interface at the apps.nextcloud.com, just a button somewhere to only show me level 1 trusted, or only show me level 1 and 2 trusted. That would be super useful here.
Actually, we're in the process of redesigning our app store anyway, so it's only possible that this feature is in there. Let me check.
All right, very cool. I find it hilarious, one of the applications here, because people can leave reviews and notes, and if you scroll down, one of the top reviews is an obvious attempt at including some JavaScript in the review code.
Someone tested some cross-site scripting thing.
Yes, trying to get some CSS in there, and it apparently fails, at least on the web browser version of it. Hopefully, it fails inside Nextcloud as well.
Yes.
So let's see. So I'm curious about, again, sticking with this idea of the App Store. We talk about that walled garden. There is something to be said for having a walled garden so long as the door is unlocked. And I guess that's kind of what you have with that idea of your trusted tier of applications. But boy, it's nice to be able to go to, let's say the Play Store, because that's where I'm at. I'm on Android a lot. It's nice to be able to go to the Play Store and have, at least an expectation that if an app is on the Play Store, it's not going to brick my phone or what have you. Although that's not necessarily a safe assumption anymore. I cover security week in and week out. I know that that's not the way it works.
But I mean, you do this as a consumer, right? Because usually the phone is your personal device, and you install a game on it, and you want to have you would make sure that the game is not really like stealing your data. Which is obviously makes total sense. Of course, Nextcloud is more server software, right? I mean, it's more comparable with, I don't know, installing another WordPress plugin or theme, or just running some Docker image that you found somewhere. And I think in these scenarios, you cannot really have 100% certainty. You need to know a little bit what you're doing, I think. And we as Nextcloud, we want to make it as safe and secure as possible, but we cannot really guarantee that you just install random things you found on the internet and it's guaranteed that it's still everything is safe and secure and performant and stable and maintained. It's tricky, yeah. But we want to be transparent. We want to be like, provide everybody the information up to the source code, and then they can decide what they do.
Sure. Now, as far as installing applications, that's just the server administrator. So someone has installed their own cloud's instance, or excuse me, Nextcloud instance. You can invite other users onto that, but the ability to install apps it's limited to that top tier, the actual administrator, right?
Yeah, that's the administrator. That's not. And this should be a person. I mean, at the end, as an administrator of a Nextcloud server, you're running a service on the internet. Which, I mean, as I said, we want to make it as easy as possible, but at the end, you need the basic level of skills to run a service on the internet, right? I mean,
you need to have seen a command line at some point in your life.
Yeah, the command line. You should know a little bit about TLS, like secure authentication, and like deploying security fixes when they're released and so on. I mean, there's some things you need to do here. So,
got some questions coming up about community and conferences. You had a conference last month, which we'll get to after I let everybody know that this episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by FastMail. Make email work for you with FastMail. Customize your workflow with colors, custom swipes, night mode, and more. FastMail has quick settings. From the quick settings menu, you can easily choose a new theme, switch between light mode and dark mode, and change your text size without leaving the FastMail screen you're looking at. Quick settings will also offer options related to the FastMail screen you're viewing. Generate a new masked email address, show or hide your reading pane, switch between folders and labels, and more. Choose to autosave contacts or choose to show public images of senders from external services like Gravatar. Set default reminders for events, change how invitations are handled, or turn notifications for calendar alerts on and off. Now add or buy a domain through FastMail. They will set up all the records for you so it works immediately. FastMail gives you the ability to send and receive emails from your own domain and to manage multiple email addresses in one space, which helps keep you organized and protects your personal data. For over 20 years, FastMail has been a leader in email privacy. The FastMail team believes in working for customers as people to be cared for, not products to be exploited. Advertisers are left out, putting you at the center. You pay for free email with your privacy. At FastMail, your data stays yours with better productivity features for as little as $3 a month. FastMail has better spam filters too, and absolutely no ads. And privacy isn't all you get with FastMail. Superior productivity tools with scheduled send, snooze, folders, labels, search bar, etc. Plus, keep track of all the important details in your life easily with FastMail's powerful sidebar. Works with password managers like Bitwarden and 1Password to make it easy for you to create unique passwords for every account and safely store them on your device. It is great on your desktop and mobile, especially when you download the FastMail app to get the most out of your email. It's easy to download your old data and import it to your new FastMail inbox. FastMail is moving email forward with new internet standards and open source innovations that power many email services other than their own. Don't get left behind by substandard email providers. Reclaim your privacy and boost productivity with FastMail. Try it now, free for 30 days at fastmail.com/twit. That's fastmail.com/twit. Okay, so Frank, I'm looking at the website. So Jonathan and I are both doing this in different places, and I see a big picture of lots of people. And you had a conference. I'm wondering two things. One is how to go in Germany with your last conference, and also how conferences are working for you. How much is that part of the community, and how much is the company in a physical space or a virtual space, and it isn't a physical space, where is that? So that's a bunch of questions at once, but it kind of gives a sense of where you're at.
Yeah, lots of aspects. So first, the conference. This is interesting because, as I said, I started this like over 13 years ago, under a different name by then, but still. So I did the version 1.0 alone, but no worries, and none of my code is left. It's all replaced by better code, by better people. But I started at the beginning, yeah. And then quickly, some people showed up and said, hey, I have a pull request here. Here's some improvement here and there and there. And at some point I said, hey, why don't you just come to the office? I was living in Stuttgart, south of Germany at the time. I said, hey, just come by for a long weekend, and then we hacked together on it. And then some people showed up. I think we were 5 people at a time. And we just worked on the code together. And then a few months later, I was like, okay, let's do this again. And then 10 people showed up, and then 20, and then 50, and then it's growing. And then later we called it a conference. So it's the Nextcloud Conference. And this time I actually don't really know the latest number. It was the biggest event so far, by far. I think it must be over 250 people or something. And everybody came together for a weekend with presentations, and then a few days of hacking together. And it was really a lot of fun. People from all over the world. And that's what we do. But it's not a classic conference that we just only listen to talks. I mean, we have talks and keynotes, quite good ones. But it's also like to just hack together, just to improve it together. It's very, very hands-on. And that's what we're doing every year.
It's interesting to me that it sounds to me like the company itself, certainly the conference, grew out of a hackathon. You had there was you, there were a few people and a few more people. It sounds a little like Apache, like early days of Apache, which kind of grew in, I think, a somewhat similar way. And so are you a completely virtual company at this point? I mean, you're working out of your house, and everybody else is. I listened to an interview with Matt Mullenweg, who's been on the show before as well. He runs Automatic, which has WordPress, and they're very committed to open source as well. They're a totally virtualized company, and they're big. So that's an interesting thing. No name on a building.
Exactly. So I wouldn't say it's completely virtual, because we actually have 2 offices. We have an office in Stuttgart and an office in Berlin, in Germany, both. But they're both relatively small. So I think we have 5-6 people in Stuttgart and 5-6 people in Berlin. And the rest of the people are remote. So we are over 90 people, I think 95 people by now. And they're in 20 countries. So actually in 20 countries distributed. And that's really our company culture. I always say that we did it, or we started this even before COVID, or even before it was cool. Nowadays everybody likes remote work, but we really did this forever. And people work from wherever they are, from home, or maybe they want to, I don't know, work from a co-working space or travel around. We have some colleagues who like to travel, they go to different places and work from there. And that's really part of our company culture, and we really like that.
Do you ever travel? It just jumped into my head. I mean, do you ever travel together? I mean, if some of you like to travel, you just go hack someplace. I ask this in part because when we had Linux Journal, which we had for 23 years, I was an editor there. We would go on these boat trips. I mean, we had these called geek cruises. I mean, even Linus and other Linux kernel hackers would go on the boat and sit there and code as well as hang out and other things like that. I don't know. Do you ever do anything like that? I'm wondering how collegial it is in that.
That's a great idea. No, we never did a real boat trip like that. But I know that some colleagues of mine that did a trip through Africa a few years ago, an Africa hack trip. where I traveled through Africa and with a bunch of people together, and then met these locals and recruited some local developers which are in our community now. And yeah, so this was a lot of fun. And we have people like traveling in Japan for at the moment, in China and the US too, who are they're just traveling and still working for us remotely. I personally like to do that. I like to travel myself and see different places. And that's something we just have a company policy that's always possible.
I have to say that I've never been to Berlin. The most time I spent in Germany is when my wife got injured at a conference, falling off a stair. It's been a month in Wiesbaden, and and my joke about German is I took 2 years of it in high school and I gave them back when I was done. But I did get to play with it a bit when I was there. I'm wondering. There's a dream that I've had. I think a lot of geeks who want muggles to be like geeks have, which is I want my own server at home. I want my own, or if I want my own cloud. I mean, to me, even the name own cloud mattered to me. The people have been talking about personal clouds for a long time. I've been talking a lot lately with people at Solid, which has this idea of a solid pod. There's Tim Berners-Lee's company. And and not just because of the company, it's a development community as well. But it's not the only one. There's this dream that we have, that a number of us have, that I have all my own personal information. I have it here. It's not anybody else's. I have all the stuff that matters to me, my contacts, calendar, health, financial, the rest of it. I am my own enterprise, as it were. But I'm also like here, I have a cable company. Years ago, I could get a business account and maybe I put up the server here, but they don't even offer that anymore, as far as I know. Is this a pipe dream, or is this something that's actually a possibility where there's what you might call a consumer marketplace here, and not just an enterprise marketplace?
Yeah. So we have tons of people who do that. I mean, it's the whole mission of Nextcloud to enable everybody to run their installation as they want. I always use the Raspberry Pi as an example. So a lot of people run it on a Raspberry Pi. I personally not really sure if I would recommend a Raspberry Pi, because maybe you want something with a bit more redundancy or better I/O performance. I don't know. But it works. I mean, a lot of people do this, and all like bigger machines. Some people run it on the NAS machines, which are sometimes more powerful. Or then, of course, to run it on some other Linux box they have. And of course, as it is with Linux, it also can be older hardware. If people have some older laptop or something and say, okay, that doesn't consume a lot of power, so I turn my laptop now into a Nextcloud server. A lot of people do that too. So yeah, this happens all the time. So we as Nextcloud, we probably don't really want to produce or sell any of those boxes. But that's not really our business. We're more software experts. But if you have any machine which is some kind of Unix, can also be BSD or anything, then Nextcloud runs probably very fine on it.
Yeah, the more time goes by, the more all of us have old machines laying around, just begging to be repurposed. And maybe we could go there or to some adjacent topic after we take a break.
So I'll jump in and pick it up. It's funny you mentioned old machines laying around. I kind of have this guideline that I use, that so long as a machine is 64-bit and has more than one processor core on it, so at least a dual core, you can still do something useful with it if you put Linux or BSD on it. And that's probably about what you guys see as far as the minimum system requirements. I would imagine that is the minimum that you would want to try to run Nextcloud on, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, 64-bit is recommended. There are some weird limitation on 32-bit machines regarding file size, number of files and stuff like that. But this should no longer be relevant nowadays. 64-bit is recommended, and anything else is probably fine. And a little bit of RAM is useful. So if you have a gigabyte of RAM or something, that's good.
Yeah.
And this should be fine for like a base Nextcloud. Of course, if you use some of our more advanced machine learning stuff that we are doing, because that's one of the big projects that we are basically doing since beginning of the year, that we have local running open source machine learning AI features. This might use a little bit more CPU power, of course.
So it's interesting you mentioned that. That was actually one of the places I was going to go to. Anytime we have someone that is, even close to being an AI company, Doc always has this question he asks. And the way he puts it is, I want my own AI. I want a local AI that I can just give everything to, and then be able to ask it questions. And I've always thought that was a cool idea too.
I mean, to train on my own stuff, not on the world, but but uses what is learned in the world on my own stuff.
Yeah. So is that something that we can do now with Nextcloud? Is that something that's coming? What does that AI look like on Nextcloud?
Yeah, that's a good question. So last year already, and this was before the whole ChatGPT hype, we launched a number of AI features. For example, we can do face recognition and object detection in photos you upload. And we do some other things like detect suspicious logins and recommend shares and other things. But these are, I would say, a bit more lightweight AI features. Then since beginning of the year, when the AI hype really started, we were doubling down on that. And we actually have our own AI team now working on open source and local AI features. And then at the beginning of the year, we launched features like that you have text to speech running local, which can be cool. You can dictate your mails or chat documents and stuff. And also in Nextcloud Talk, you can have a transcript of your video calls as text. So this is also running locally quite nicely. Then we have integration for image generation. Using Stable Diffusion, running completely local. And anytime you can say, hey, here, I want to insert a photo that doesn't exist yet. If you're in the middle of a chat conversation, brainstorm, you can say, hey, I want to have an illustration of some visualization of an idea. You can do this completely local. And then since the last release, 4 weeks ago, we actually launched our full Nextcloud Assistant, which is using a large language model, which is running completely local, completely open source. So you can at any time say, hey, in mail, generate a mail for me for my birthday invitation, or please summarize this mail thread for me, or reformulate this contract for me, or basically other things. So this is something you can already use today. That's fully released and production ready. And we are working on more features. So I don't want to spoil too much, but we're actually working on this exact feature that you mentioned, that in the future you can chat with your assistant and the assistant understands your local data. So you can ask, hey, what are the latest emails from this person, or what's the summary of this contract, or what is something like that, or what is the, I don't know, how happy is this customer if you look at the mails we got from them lately, or something like that.
Now, I see
this year. Yeah.
Excellent. I see in the documentation here 2 different versioning systems. So you've got Nextcloud 26, Nextcloud 27, Nextcloud, I think 28. But then I'm also seeing Nextcloud Hub 6 is here, and that's where a lot of this machine learning stuff is in. What's up with this two versioning system?
Yeah, I think we need to clean this up at some point. So the main version, the higher number, the main versioning is the versioning number of Nextcloud itself, of the core, basically, the Nextcloud core, where we have 27 early this year, 27.1 now. The next release will be 28 and so on. But that's basically the version number of the core itself. But as I said earlier, nowadays we position ourselves more as this suite of different components that work together. And this is what we call Nextcloud Hub. So then a few years ago, we introduced for this like a special version number, but I don't know if this was a good idea. It was actually, the idea was to make it simpler, but now people like you are confused. So maybe we need to change that again.
One of the other thoughts that came to mind as we were going through this, you talked about this being in some places the standard for education. One of the other standards for education is the Chromebook, and I'm just curious: is there some way to set a Chromebook or something similar to up with a Nextcloud backend instead of using the Google backend?
So something completely the same as a Chromebook, I don't think this exists for Nextcloud. But if you use a Linux desktop and you use the GNOME desktop, then we really have very nice integration into GNOME, or also Ubuntu. Ubuntu is also using GNOME. So if you log in for the first time into your desktop, you get a question if you want to connect this desktop to some cloud service. And I think you have like Google and some other services in there, but there's also Nextcloud in the list. And then with your Ubuntu laptop or your GNOME laptop, whatever you use, you say, hey, I want to connect to Nextcloud. Then it automatically connects the calendar and the contacts and the files and several other services. And then you have a little bit an experience like a Chromebook, where you have then the local applications running, working on top of data that's synchronized with the Nextcloud server. It's not exactly the same, but a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so we are getting down to the end of the show, and there's a question that when it fits, I really like to ask people, and that is, what's the weirdest or most surprising use that you know of that someone made out of this? What's the weirdest thing someone has done with Nextcloud?
Something that was really unexpected to me was to use it on ships. So people use it on ships that are like, I don't know, sailing over the ocean and then disconnected from the internet for some time. And then but people still have their stuff local and they can work with their files and calendar, whatever. And then once they're in a harbor again, then they have internet connection again, then you can sync up with the rest of the internet.
That's really interesting.
Once it's not connected to the internet, they still have it like locally and can work with it locally. That's something that I didn't thought about when I came up with this whole idea. But that's something that happens.
Are these small ships, or like like a sailor goes out of a harbor in a small 32-foot something, or are you talking about something that like could be like a container cargo vessel or something like that, or somewhere in between?
I know from small ships and also from very big ships. So it seems to be for both. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And another interesting use case, I think, is, and that makes me personally very happy, that I know that there are some organizations, some human rights organizations who use Nextcloud to establish like communication and collaboration infrastructure in countries, in places that are not so nice. So, for example, if you want to, I don't know, have like journalists working in a country which doesn't allow free journalism, then Nextcloud is often used in these places because you can really have a local install and you give people access, and you cannot really censor that from a government perspective. And I know a lot of, I don't want to say names now, but I know a lot of organizations, journalist organizations and human rights organizations who use like Nextcloud to work like in a nice, secure way with people, and it cannot really be detected by organizations that you don't want to see here.
It's another good thing about not being part of some, one of the big, and as they call them now in Europe, gatekeepers, right? That's what the European law has now designated, the kind of the big five or whatever they are, which they are. And so we always, at the end of the show, we always ask our guest what their favorite text editor and scripting language are. So you must have some of those.
Yeah, text editor, I really have to say, I don't know if it's still embarrassing or not, I don't know, but I still use like Vim for everything.
Oh, you're in the majority here, so it's
really?
okay.
Oh, really? I have to say that nowadays there's not a good reason for it, because there are just like editors that are better in my opinion, but it's an old habit. I just cannot, I don't know. Sometimes I'm still coding something, and then I reach my nice setup. I have my terminal window here, I have my browser there, and my nice editor there. I don't know, use some Visual Studio Code or some other modern editor. But then if I'm doing something in the command line, I just have the habit that I'll just edit quickly with VI or with Vim, and then I just do everything in the terminal. I don't use my fancy IDE anymore. So yeah, so that's the habit.
The only embarrassing answer to that question is Microsoft Office.
Well, does it even work? I don't know.
I'm not sure it's useful for that.
I don't know.
Maybe that's
I don't
part
know.
of it. Yeah.
And then scripting language.
And scripting language, yeah. I mean, I don't know. For a long time I worked a lot with PHP in my day job, and then of course Nextcloud is mostly PHP in the backend. But I have to say, because I'm personally playing more and more with machine learning the last few months, that nowadays do really a lot, just fun projects, but I really do a lot with Python, I have to say. And I like it. Yeah, I like it.
Cool. So I'm writing at the back channel here. Just got caught. We always look. Yeah, great. Yeah, we're always looking there. Sometimes we get questions. Mostly we just get snarky comments or people talking among themselves. But anyway, anyhow, this has been great, Frank. I really appreciate it. And even though we've had you on a number of times before, a number we may not even know, we'll have to check back and see. But it's really great to see how well things have gone for you, and we'll love to have you back. And maybe after the next conference, where your company's doubled in size again, or something.
Always fun. Yeah. And by the way, you're invited to Berlin to our next conference.
Oh, great! Is it in Berlin? Yeah. When
it's in Berlin.
When does that happen?
We don't have a date, but probably next September or something.
Okay. Well, let me know. I'll see if I can find a way over there. That'd be great.
Great. Cool.
Appreciate it. So great. Well, great to have you back, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot. Always fun. See you next time.
So Jonathan, with some of these, I hate to end them because it's a bunch of things that are. It's sort of like I thought I knew about this, but I didn't know it. And
yeah, sometimes it takes 45 minutes of the hour-long interview to really get to the good stuff. So I'm looking here, and apparently we have Frank on about every 3 years on FLOSS Weekly. He was first on in 2013 to talk about OwnCloud, and then 2016 about Nextcloud, 2019 an update for Nextcloud, and so I guess now in 2023 we're on the update to the update. So 2026 we'll have to have him back.
if not sooner, if I could get over to that conference.
If not sooner, fun. Yes. Yeah. No, there's some neat stuff going on here. And I would really like to see. I know we don't like the walled garden of Apple particularly, but I would really like to see some way to say, I only want to install trusted applications, because so many of those apps, some of those integration apps are so neat. But as I'm going down through there, looking at them, almost every one of them, I'm going, man, I would hope for there to be something nasty in there, or for someone to slip something nasty in there. So for me, for my use, that seems like something that needs another pass. Another round of development, of thinking real hard about, to try to get that just dialed in exactly right. But everything else about Nextcloud, I'm just a huge fan of, and the assistant stuff that they're adding, I would love to be able to do that, because right now I use Google Photos, and one of the reasons I do that is because there's nothing like being able to just, you have a receipt, take a picture of the receipt, and then 3 months later you can say, hey Google, show me that receipt, that gas receipt from 3 months ago. And Google will pretty much be able to figure it out and show you what you're looking for. To be able to do that without sending your photos up to Google and on your own hardware, that would be great. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, photography is interesting to me because I have online, I've got like 100,000 photos. I mean, these are publicly exposed ones on my various obsessions. And just so people know, geology, aviation, tech, infrastructure, nothing salacious.
Feet? Isn't feet
radio towers? Radio towers.
Yeah, that's infrastructure. I have a whole thing on infrastructure, and that's where it's actually about old infrastructure that's going away. I think radio towers are starting to fall like old growth forest. But I'd love to be able to interrogate what I've got on site, in exactly the way you're talking about. I've wanted a scanner that's kind of like a little ringer. I could run every receipt through. I've got a box of receipts over there, and I'd love to run them all through and say, which ones are the drugstore, which ones are Costco, which ones are what, and even the ones that get online, the Amazon ones that don't actually match what they sent you, or what the bill or what it says on your credit card, pull that apart, make sense of it. I just think there's just a huge untapped market there on the personal side of things, and this is encouraging to me that it's kind of moving in that direction.
So there's one more observation I have to make before we go. It really fascinated me. He talked about people on ships out in the middle of nowhere.
I know,
that's their Nextcloud instance. Well, so you've got things like Starlink are slowly working to make that obsolete. But then you think about, well, what's the next thing on the horizon? Well, we are, as humanity, we're really on the cusp of sending people to other planets, like to Mars. And you've got to know, there's going to be something like, if not Nextcloud, something like it, running on Starship going to Mars, because it's going to be the exact same problem. So there's a lot of potential, future potential for that particular idea, and I found that really interesting.
Well, we'll have to put that in the queue for when we have Frank back.
Yes.
So in the meantime, give us your plugs, and we'll get out of here.
Sure. So the two things I want to mention, first off, follow my work on Hackaday. Every Friday morning, the security column goes live. We talk about all sorts of fun and interesting stuff there, sometimes terrifying, but that's just the world of security. And then the other thing I'll mention is the Untitled Linux Show, and that is our weekly show covering all things Linux and some open source stuff. It's more covering the news and analysis, but it is a lot of fun. But that is a TWiT Plus exclusive. So get on the Discord, get TWiT Plus, get on the Discord, and join us there. And if you're not on TWiT Plus, if you're not part of Club TWiT, well, why not? Get on, and hope to see you there.
And this is the part of the show where I scramble to see what the schedule is for next week, as I always do. Okay, here's who it is. It's Luis Villa. He's with Tide Lift. That's one word, TIDE Lift, Tide Lift, Luis Villa, and Simon will be the co-host for that one. So that's coming up next week. And we thank you for being here, and we'll see you then.
It's midweek, and you really want to know even more about the world of technology.
So you should check out Tech News Weekly, the show where we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news.
It's the biggest news. We talk with the people writing the stories that you're probably reading. We also talk between ourselves about the stories that are getting us even more excited about tech news this week.
So if you're excited, well, then join us. Head to twit.tv/TNW to subscribe.